This is a GRDC podcast.
What you need to look for is green leaves, ideally, with actively growing rust. If we take a sample here, easily identifiable, green leaves, orange or brown pustules, it comes off on your finger.
It's really important that we get enough. 10 leaves and 10 stems is what we need for a good sample.
G'day, I'm Daryl Anderson, and you've just heard Matthew Williams and Margerita Pietilainen from the Australian Cereal Rust Survey team at Sydney Uni's Plant Breeding Institute near Camden, just out of Sydney. They analyse up to 1,700 rust samples per year sent by growers and their agronomists from all over Australia. A vital GRDC investment. And shortly we'll hear from them how to do rust sampling properly so you get your result faster. But first, back in the 1840s, the farmers around Camden took up wheat growing in a big way. It became the dominant crop, but less than 20 years later the industry was ruined. One thing brought that about: cereal rust, wheat's most destructive fungal pathogen. Wheat growing was forced inland, where it stayed, away from Camden's coastal humidity. But the thing that drove wheat away helps make Camden ideal as a centre for rust research, which is what it is today. So, the Australian Cereal Rust Survey. Growers who see rust in their crops, wheat, oats, barley, triticale, or even on barley grass or wild oats, can take a sample, send it in, and find out what pathogen they're dealing with, while helping the industry stay on top of any new rust strains that emerge. Dr Mumta Chhetri heads up the project.
We receive samples from all over Australia, from the cereal growing regions. From Western Australia, we receive leaf rust. Stripe rust is not there right now, and stem rust samples. And from other regions, New South Wales, mostly we receive is stripe rust. And at this time of the year, leaf rust is coming up, and we'll be receiving some leaf rust from New South Wales and from Victoria, from Queensland, from Southern Australia and Tasmania.
When you say this time of the year, at the moment we're sitting here, it's October. How much potential for damage is there from rust? How big an issue is it?
Rust is one of the most damaging disease for cereal, especially for all the cereals. You can see rust in all the cereals like barley, wheat, oats, and all the cereals. In a conducive environment like ideal temperature, ideal moisture condition, and then if there is a susceptible variety grown in the paddock, so that is really damaging. And you can see about 50% of crop losses in that paddock if that year it is damaging. In 2022, it was very conducive and there was a stripe rust epidemic. So climatic condition is correlated with the rust pressure.
So for a farmer, a grower who sees rust in their paddock, what should they do?
If they see sample in the field, because we are working in a national survey and surveillances project, we would request them to send it to us so that we can pathotype it and let them know that how the diversity of pathogen is going on in their field. There is a right way and wrong way of doing sampling. Sometimes wrong way gives us was that it lengthens our time of processing, and right way, you can get it processed within 3 weeks of time.
Well, we'd better go to the paddock now and find out the right way to do the sampling.
Yes, let's go.
With a bit of podcast magic, we're now out in the paddock, but it's not any paddock. This is the inoculation nursery at the Plant Breeding Institute, and so we're not going to find any shortage of rust infestation. Margarita, tell us about yourself, firstly.
My name's Margarita and I work here at the Plant Breeding Institute as one of the research assistants. Basically, I'm the hands-on person as well. When we get those samples in, I'm the one that's cutting them up and putting them in tubes, and then they're going off to get inoculated. So there's a lot of work that we need to do when we receive those samples.
And Matt, what do you do?
I've been in the research program for approximately 27 years. I oversee the national surveillance and also look after the cryogenic storage facility at the Plant Breeding Institute, which houses all of the rust spores and samples.
So both really important jobs, but what we're here to do now is to see how to take a sample. What are we looking for in a sample?
Okay, so what we're actually looking for is a nice green leaf, but it's down in the canopy usually. We go down here where the moisture basically is. I think Matthew's going to pick one up here. There we go. We've found a nice green leaf. It's got that rust-looking pustules or spots on them.
Yeah,
so they're actually actively sporulating.
Oh, so you've rubbed that with your thumb, and you've got a nice brown thumb there now. So is that the sign of what you're looking for?
That's what we're looking for. That's an active sporulating rust pustules all over the leaves actually. So you're getting a fair bit of rust there. That will actually is what we need. We need that colour.
So find a leaf or a stem. Give it a rub with your thumb to make sure, and if your thumb comes away with orange powder, then you know you've got the right thing.
That's right.
How much of it do you need?
Technically we'd like 10 good samples, so 10 good green leaves.
All right, let's see if we can find 10 now.
Okay. Matthew can go digging in.
They need to be all the same. You don't mix up rust. Don't mix up stripe rust and stem rust.
Yeah, the leaves basically looking the same, so with the distinct same sort of spots, the same colours technically.
So we've now picked 10.
That's right.
And what we need to, so they're 10 leaves or 10 stems with all of the same type of rust on them. It's all viable rust that rubs off brown on your thumb, so you know that it's alive.
Mm-hmm.
You put it in any old envelope, is that right?
No.
Paper only. Plastic is the natural enemy of rust samples. If we receive a plastic sample in plastic, it'll be sweaty, possibly germinating the spores, rendering them useless to us. We want paper envelopes only. Nice green sample, heavily infected, 10 leaves or stems in our Reclipate envelope system. Basically on the back we have a tick and flick system. We're basically looking for what type of rust you think it is. We will obviously diagnose what type of rust it is with a preliminary rust ID. We were asking for host, type of rust, nearest postcoded town is really important. We're after the cultivar or the variety if it's known. We're also after the date collected, and it's really important that you put your personal details on there so we can get in contact with you once the pathotyping's been completed.
So make sure you put the town in the postcode, because who knows how many Hamiltons there are in Australia.
That's right. I mean, mobile phone number is great. Email address is fantastic also. One way or another, we'll get in contact with you.
Once it's in the envelope, how long do you have to send it off? What are the mistakes that people make?
Well, the mistakes are leaving them in the boot of the car, on the dashboard, in the glove box. The ideal situation would be to collect your sample in the paper envelope with as much information as possible and put that into the post within 24 hours. Then that will then end up at the cereal rust laboratories at Cobbitty, and we can start the process of pathotyping that particular sample.
So heat kills, time kills, plastic kills.
And moisture kills. So we need dry samples. So if you've had a heavy dew or a light shower of rain, we just wait until the crop dries before you put wet tissue samples into the paper envelope, because more often than not they'll end up sweating and turn up to us damp.
So in summary, get live infection on green tissue, give it a rub to make sure it comes off brown on your thumb, get enough of the stuff, so 10 leaves, 10 stems, don't put it in plastic, get it in the bag, label it properly, and don't leave it in the boot, and get it away as fast as possible, and don't leave it in the sun or in the heat or whatever, because that'll kill it and it'll make it useless.
Yes, that's right, and make sure that your sample's dry on postage.
As Matthew said, there's reply-paid envelopes available to send your rust samples to the team, or you can fill in an online form and use your own paper envelope. Details are in the podcast description. Of course, collecting your sample is only the beginning. We're back in the lab. Now, Mumta, when you receive the sample from the paddock, what happens here in the lab?
when the rust samples arrives here, we just increase that sample onto the susceptible variety so that the inoculum is increased. And then after 14 days of incubation and putting it in the greenhouse, I do the scoring of that pathotype. So we have received about 15 samples today. So this one is from Breeza, New South Wales.
Breeza, so that's up northern New South Wales, not far from Tamworth, between Coolah and Gunnedah is where Breeza is.
If you look at this sample, this is a pretty good example of a good sample. It has got all rust in it. So we will be able to give this result within 3 weeks of time. And what happens after we pathotag? We send the results to the sender, and then we also have a serial rust map which is in the website, and that can be accessed by anyone who wants to see what diversity is going on with the pathogen in rust area.
The better the sample you get, the faster you can get that work done, so you can get the information back to the grower or their agronomist, and also feed that information into the cereal rust survey so that we know what pathogens we're dealing with across Australia.
Yes, growers' contribution to the cereal rust project is really vital for us, because if we do not receive this sample, we won't be knowing what diversity is going on in the field and which variety is being knocked out, or that kind of critical information cannot be generated if we don't do pathotyping and surveillances for this rust disease. So the sample is the most important part of it.
Mumta, it's been really interesting to hear how you analyse the samples that come from all over Australia, and also find out how a grower should do a good sample and how to do a good sample. Thank you so much for joining us on this GRDC podcast.
Thank you so much, and we want this information to be spread to the growers. Thank you.
That was Dr Mumta Chhetri, and we also heard from Margerita Pietilainen and Matthew Williams, the team behind GRDC's Australian Cereal Rust Survey at Sydney Uni's Plant Breeding Institute. Hey, Mumta mentioned the cereal rust map that's on the website. Check it out. It's totally interactive and shows all the samples for the current season. There's a link to that in the podcast description, where you'll also find a link to the GRDC fact sheet showing you how to collect a rust sample. Might be easier than listening to it on a podcast. And how to get reply paid envelopes for sending samples, and that online form if you want to send your sample in your own paper envelope. All of that is in the podcast description. And as always, there's lots more info available from GRDC at grdc.com.au, or for a more personalised approach, try logging in to my.grdc.com.au. Getting rust samples analysed is completely free for Australian grain growers and agronomists, and when you do, you're getting the jump on the pathogen in your paddock, so you make informed decisions, particularly about variety choice in subsequent crops. And you're contributing to our industry's knowledge of the distribution of rust strains. I'm Daryl Anderson, and it's been terrific being with you for this GRDC podcast. Thanks for listening.